we're going to take a more detailed look at the language of speech and how it differs from the language of writing. Language isn't always the crafted written text studied in the classroom. Language happens everywhere, every day, in thousands of different contexts. For example, in telephone calls, on talk shows, in a school playground, in conversations in the street. In a way, every language context is unique, but there are some clear differences between the language of writing and the language of speech.
When we're looking at written text, it's often the words that are seen as central, and it wouldn't matter whether you were looking in a Signet edition or a Penguin edition or any other edition. It's seen that we are looking at Shakespeare's words or whoever's words, and it's the language that's important. Whereas when you look at speech or listen to speech, there's something different happening, because every act of speech is unique. It can never really be recaptured precisely in the same way, except by audio recording or video recording, because of course so much of the information is being given visually as well as by auditory means. Speech is ephemeral. It's finished as soon as it's happened. It depends upon all sorts of contextual clues that aren't just there in the words and the grammar. And there's the obviously things like the body language, there's the voice quality, there's the pace, there's the intonation, the tunes that are being made as they're speaking.
You'll find more examples of this primary distinction between writing and speech, the so-called mode of a piece of language, on the original writing pages of the Guru English website. But here, we're going to look at the language of speech. While you watch this clip, listen to the language used and compare it to one of the literary texts we've been looking at. In what ways is it different?
The thing I love about chilies is they're all different, they all taste different, they all smell different, and they're all different shapes and sizes. And these are the ones they're like a cross between chili and peppers. They're like the things they make paprika out of by drying them, crumbling. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to kind of preserve these, ready for a midnight munchie. So first things first, cut them in half, and we're going to remove the seeds, because all the deadly, 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 deadly heat is in there. People always think of chilies as something that gives heat, and it's not. They're actually fantastic to eat if you give them half a chance.
Now compare Jamie Oliver's way of talking with the kind of speech used in this TV news report.
Edwards was the scientific brains.
Within the past half hour, we've heard of the death of the test tube baby pioneer, Patrick Steptoe.
His family say he died from cancer. Steptoe was 704. Science correspondent James Wilkinson.
Can't cue James.
Yeah. Patrick Steptoe, with his colleague Robert Edwards, laid the foundations for a technique which is now used worldwide to treat certain kinds of infertility. Thousands of couples have cause to thank them for the research which produced Louise Brown.
Both presenters are using speech to convey information to the TV audience. But the language of their speech could hardly be more different. The first, informal, chatty and unscripted.
I've got some olive oil. You don't want to use really, really good olive oil. Just enough to cover it. I'm going to bake it about 200, and you're going to tenderise the chilli so it's nice and edible.
The second, formal, polished and read from an autocue.
Mrs. Thatcher was given expert tuition when she tried her hand as a litter inspector this morning. At St James Park in London, she launched a £1 million drive to keep Britain tidy and clean up the worst eyesore.
What causes these differences? And how is it possible to describe them? Well, for any text, written or spoken, Shakespeare speech or email message, language varies in response to its context. And that context can be divided into 4 different aspects. They are the situation in which the language is composed and received, the audience for the language event or participants in it, the purpose or purposes for which it is being used, and the channel. That is, the means by which we transmit the language, including the new types of communication and text made possible by digital technology. What we're going to do is look at a number of spoken texts, using these 4 aspects of context to describe what happens in the language of speech. Something you need to be able to do in AS English language or language and literature. So what is situation? Look again at Jamie Oliver. While you watch the next clip, make a note of anything you notice about his language that would not be conveyed if it was simply written down on a page.
Right, so I've got 4 big black aubergines. You can use any aubergines, really. And I've roasted them at 250 degrees for about an hour. And you have this really soft, sweet-smelling kind of inside, and it's kind of almost creamy. It's fantastic. But they call it poor man's caviar, because inside it looks a little bit like caviar, kind of. It looks nothing like caviar, but I don't know. Who invented that? And I'm going to use cumin, and cumin is a fantastic spice. It's a right pokey spice, you know, it gives you a right punch around the face. And you have to go easy with it, really. So I'm going to have 2 pinches. And if I need more, I'll add it later, but essentially, that's how much I need. Once you've got that to a nice paste, get it in here, scoop it out, and stir that in.
Now, here is the same recipe in more or less the same words written down.
And I've roasted them at 250 degrees for about an hour. I call it Essex Boys Caviar because I think it's a bit of a classier name, you know. And I'm going to use cumin, and cumin is a fantastic spice. It's a right pokey spice, you know, it gives you a right punch around the face. And you have to go easy with it, really.
You can see straight away that the written version is more orderly, compact and message-focused. It looks more organised and considered. The spoken version is more non-fluent, that is, fragmented and hesitant, with ums and ers and repetitions as he finds the words he needs as he goes along. It's more casual, with colloquial and non-standard features such as slang and dialect. These are features typical of spoken rather than written language. But they're also to do with the situation in which the Naked Chef is talking. He's on TV presenting a popular cookery programme with a young, style-conscious audience, and he wants to come across as relaxed, unstuffy, spontaneous, not too serious, and fast-moving.
You know when you're at school and you've got kind of groups of friends that are into different things, girls, trainers, sports, and then the ones that are into cars? Well, they always used to kind of like gather around and get out of the bus queue to watch my old dear come in. She'd go, and then I used to get in and they used to go, oh yeah, man, she did a wheel spin in second.
So it's the situation in which it's being spoken that determines the kind of language Jamie Oliver uses.
I think what's important in the way that Jamie Oliver presents himself is the attention he gives to the social functions in the situation, the way he finds ways of making friends with the immediate listener, who's half off screen, and with the viewer through things like animated body language, honesty, the use of informal language of the type you don't normally see on television, and a general sense of freedom and desire to improvise.
Conversation, a dialogue in which other people are involved in shaping the communication, is another aspect of situation which fundamentally affects the language of speech. Listen to these people from the TV show Castaway 2000 trying to reach an agreed view about the problems of living together. What do you notice about their speech?
There is a possibility that a few of you are going to be here for a couple of weeks, and we're going to be there, and we're sorting out food and various other things. And the fact is, everyone's spirits are really high, and we were all as Sandy and I left.
Spirits are high.
But they are. I mean, that's an important thing.
You're not running families, you know. You're yourselves. You know, we were told that one of the pods was complete, but for a leak, you know, so it isn't complete, is the story. And, you know, we don't want to be there until it is leak-proof, warm.
But that's why you're here now, because you're not happy with it there.
Yeah,
so stay here.
Yes, but
stay here until you're happy with it there.
Absolutely, but what we can't have is people coming here telling it's complete.
The harshest weather is going to be now, February and March, and if the weather is so bad it's causing damage to stuff, we're going to need to fix it then and there, not get onto the satellite phone and call them out.
Isn't that the whole?
Isn't
that the whole point of it's the only thing I'm going to say? But isn't that the whole point of us being on the island is for us to exist and do stuff ourselves?
Speech is something that's made by people negotiating meaning together it's a dance, a game of tennis, whatever you call it, but where each turn depends upon the previous turn, and that can be done cooperatively or it can be done confrontationally.
The next clip is an example of confrontation. While you watch, ask yourself what kind of communication is taking place here.
I was entitled to be consulted.
Did you threaten to overrule
I
him?
was not entitled to instruct Derek Lewis, and I did not instruct him. And
Did
the
you
truth
threaten
of,
to overrule
the
him?
truth of the matter is that Mr. Marriott was not suspended.
Did you
I
threaten
did not
to overrule him?
I did not overrule Derek
Did you
Lewis.
threaten to overrule him?
I took advice on what I could or could not do.
Did you threaten
and
to
I
overrule him,
acted
Mr. Howard?
scrupulously in accordance with that advice. I did not overrule Derek
Did you
Lewis.
threaten to overrule
Mr.
him?
Marriott was not suspended.
Did you threaten to overrule him?
I have accounted for my decision to dismiss Derek Lewis.
Did you threaten to
great
overrule him?
Detail before the House of Commons.
I note you're not answering the question.
That was a speech equivalent of a heavyweight boxing match, but conversation normally works much more cooperatively. As you watch the next clip, notice how each contribution seems to build on the one before. And ask yourself, what is the purpose of constructing the conversation in this way?
Well, what sort of men do you like in real life?
Well, at the I haven't spoken for. It's a little bit old for me, dear.
How old is he?
Well, all my fella's 33 going on 53.
A toy boy?
Makes me feel good to say that, darling.
Oh, Barbara,
Yeah.
how are you going to cope?
Oh, I do, darling. Look at this smile on my face.
I think you've made a rod for your own back there.
Shall I think about it?
At that age,
I
33, he'll be wanting bedroom malarkey.
I should bloody well hope so, darling. What's the thing I'm with him?
Did you notice how Mrs. Merton feeds her interviewee with conversational hooks, enabling her to say witty things and come across well? And although there is some fun poking, it's all very non-threatening. Her purpose here is to establish a relaxed, friendly, even intimate relationship with her interviewee. Clearly, the purpose of a text is closely bound up with its situation.
Don't you? Don't you like to thrash about?
I do not. No, I've got separate bedrooms, me and my husband.
If you'd like to do some more analysis of how conversational language works and find out what Grice's cooperative principle means, visit the speech and writing pages of the Guru English website. Now watch the Scottish writer Liz Lockhead reading a poem which is itself about spoken language. What do you think the speaker's purposes are here?
It was January and a gay dreich day, the first day I went to the school. So my mum happed me up in my good navy blue napcoat with a red tartan hood, birled a scarf around my neck, put on my pixie and my pockies, it was that bitter, said, "Noo you'll no starve," gied me a wee kiss and a kid on scalp in the bum, and sent me off across the playground to the place I'd learned to say it was January and a really dismal day, the first day I went to school. So my mum wrapped me up in my best navy blue cloth coat with the red tartan hood.
Now, although you could see the words of the poem, and this may have helped you to decipher some of the Scots words, this is primarily a spoken text.
The first day I went to the school, so my mum happed me up in my good navy blue napcoat with a red tartan hood.
In fact, the speaker's purpose here is to illustrate how much more can be got across in the spoken than in the written version, and how much more vital and energetic it sounds in Scots. It's the pace, the volume, the intonation or pitch, and the rhythm or patterns of stress that carry so much of the meaning here.
When somebody reads a poem or indeed any text out loud, all kinds of extra things emerge that you don't see on the printed page, or at least are rather pathetically shown through the spelling and the punctuation and the layout. There are four main characteristics. You add pitch, you add loudness, you add speed, you add rhythm, and of course you add pause as well. Pitch is the most complex of these things, the whole range of the intonation of the voice, all the movements upwards and downwards and the staying level of the voice, to produce a really quite sophisticated system of meanings. But rhythm, too, is quite complex, for the various ways in which we use the stress patterns of the language actually act as a very important organizational principle for the expression of meaning in a poem.
Together, these features of spoken language are called prosody. Check out the speech and writing pages of the Guru English website for more detail on this.